Fantasy Rap
with Austin and Ozzy.
Oh, I just love those boys.
Hey everyone, this is Fantasy Rap, and I'm your host Ozzy.
And I'm your co-host Austin.
You can find us on fantasyrap.com. That is fantasywrap.com.
Yep.
Hey everybody, welcome to week 15 of the Fantasy and NFL. Fantasy. I had to think about it. I'm sitting here thinking about all the buys that we've always got. First up, we've got P's Picks. Camera. Hey everybody, welcome to P's Picks. Hi Sutton. How are you? Do you have your monies today?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're going to pick between these two teams. We've got the... Who's that?
Banana.
Banana.
Yeah, it looks like a banana. They actually look like they slipped on a banana yesterday.
Yeah.
That's the Chargers. And this is upside down is the Raiders. So who do you think we should talk about? The Raiders? Okay, we will talk about the Raiders. Can you look up and say goodbye?
Hi.
Everyone, you saw what P chose. She chose the Las Vegas Raiders. We get to talk about the happier half of the game last night. They played out of their minds. The defense was amazing.
Yep.
The offense seemed to be clicking. O'Connell had an excellent game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say, a lights out game because he still was only 20 of 34 for 248, 4 touchdowns.
Yes.
Funny thing is, he takes that helmet off and he looks like he's not an athlete. And I mean, he's, a lot of these guys are in pretty darn good shape. And he just looks kind of like the guy that, sits on the couch and eats some chips and drinks a bunch of beer. And
So like Jay Cutler did.
yeah.
Jay Cutler.
I think Cutler was in better shape than
maybe
this guy.
Eli a little bit.
Yeah.
Where he takes his helmet off. He's like, oh boy.
Yeah. I mean, with the helmet on, he looks a little bit different, but all of a sudden he pulls that off and you're like, he's fat in the neck and it surprises me.
Yeah.
But if you've got a good arm and you can read the field and you make decisive plays, all the more power to you.
Yep.
Moving on, we've got Zamir White, who I picked up Wednesday late afternoon, knowing that Josh Jacobs could be injured, and my choices were an injured Ramondre Stevenson, a pickup that I had in Chase Brown, who I would have played, or Gainwell, so I dropped Gainwell and picked up Zamir White.
Yeah.
And Zamir White was 3 catches on 4 targets for only 16 yards, but 17 rushes, 69 yards, and a touchdown. And it could have been far, far worse because all the opportunity. I mean, how many? 5 people scored offensive touchdowns, and what were there? Were there 8 touchdowns?
Yeah.
8 touchdowns.
Yeah. Defense scored
3. I think so. There was
pick 6, a fumble.
Wasn't there one early on? Maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
But it was a big game for the defense, and I want to say these guys came out looking like they wanted to win for Pierce.
Yeah, I mean they definitely have been playing a lot harder, a little more passion than once Pierce, our old guy, I can't even remember who it was.
Who? What was?
The coach,
Josh
McDaniel.
Yeah.
Oh, it was. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. So I mean, Pierce comes in, and it was immediate. That next week, you saw.
Yeah.
I mean, the eye test. It was just a different team out there.
And they really utilized Devontae, which.
Oh my God, that works when you have a superstar player and you get him the ball a bunch.
But imagine Zamir White if they had given him the ball a bunch more down. I mean, because they kept on throwing those 12 to 15 yard touchdowns.
Yep.
And
Didn't Brandon Bolden? who
Brandon
scored
Bolden
one?
ran one in on a Wildcat from about 12 out.
Yeah.
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 So I mean, it was just, you know, and my buddy, like I said, the commissioner of the league of 30 plus years, and they played for a few years before I even got into it. You know, he's like, you know, Wednesday, he's like, nice pickup, and then first touchdown gets scored, and he's just like, just shut up. And you know, and I get it, but
Yeah.
like I said, had they actually been stopped a couple of times and let him run the ball, he would have.
Yeah.
He could have had 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Which would have blown our game wide open because you know CMC still to play along with Purdy and others. Moving on, we've got Devontae Adams, 8 catches on 12 targets, 101 yards, and a touchdown. And that touchdown pass was not from O'Connell.
Yep.
The 5th touchdown pass was actually from
Jacoby Myers.
Jacoby Myers. So, you know, I like that they involved Devontae. And Devontae looked completely different than he's looked in the last, and I haven't really seen them play that much as of late.
Yeah.
But 5-6 weeks ago, he looked like he didn't even want to be there. And granted, I think he was coming off of a leg injury.
Yeah, he was banged up. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, he was definitely still recovering. So
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know that he was totally available back then like he is now, but he just everything was crisp. He seemed to be playing really well.
yeah, he was having fun on the sideline too.
Yeah.
Seeing that going around and kind of dancing, whatever, sitting on the bench there. But I mean, yeah, when you're putting up 63 points,
Yeah, yeah.
it's pretty fun.
Next up, we've got Trey Tucker, 3 catches on 4 targets, 59 yards and 2 touchdowns, 1 rush for -2 yards. Guy was in the right place at the right time over and over and over. Well, 3 times.
Yeah.
His first touchdown was about a millisecond from being overturned, too, because it was a question. He bobbled the ball at the back of the end zone, and I wasn't quite sure. When I first saw it at full speed, I said incomplete.
Yeah.
I thought his foot had come up, he bobbled the ball, and he didn't get 2 feet down. But apparently, you know, the tip of his toes were touching a blade of do they have real grass or fake grass? Whatever it was, it was touching when he came into contact, you know, finally got control of the ball. So they gave him the touchdown. I mean, it took a while for him to decide because, I mean, they probably went with any angle to try and overturn it.
Yeah.
And I didn't listen as to whether it was confirmed or it was the play stands as called.
Yeah, I don't know.
So it was one of those, had it been called the other way, I don't necessarily think you could have overturned it. So next up, we've got Mike Mayer, 4 catches on 5 targets, 39 yards and a touchdown. Another recipient of a nice pass.
Yeah.
Got himself open in the back of the area in the end zone and
Yeah, he's
touchdown.
been getting more involved, getting a little more.
Yeah, he had a really nice
Integrated,
play
yeah.
right down. I think it was the first drive
Yeah.
that kept it going and allowed for Zamir White to score that touchdown on a 3rd down and like 8 or 9 or something. Makes the catch across the middle, fights for first down yardage, and goes down around the 1. So, he, another one that seemed to really want to be playing. Jacoby Myers, 2 catches on 4 targets, 32 yards, another touchdown. Passing, he was 2 of 2 for 12 yards and a touchdown.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, good game all the way around for him. I mean, you can't ask for a whole lot more, except maybe a couple runs in there. But
yeah, it'd be interesting if they can keep Devontae there and Myers as well, because I mean, Jacoby beginning of the season too was
on fire,
outperforming Devontae.
Yeah,
so they got and then Myers, even when he was in He was the only pass catching option in New England that you wanted to touch too,
Right.
because same thing. I think he just caught a lot of touchdowns. But yeah, so it'd be interesting to see if they can keep that unit together. They got the 1 year rental on Jacobs
Yeah.
in the off season. So like I said, could be
I just
I think this off season is gonna be
right.
very,
I mean, I
we
don't
talked
know
about
that-
last week, along with like the Jets situation, and then
Right.
now with the Chargers, getting rid of Staley and the GM, and seeing what they do with that team and all their pieces. I think, and then again with the Raiders, they could try and keep that nucleus together, and I'd see how they play
but what's
rest
the
of
nucleus?
season.
Is O'Connell your nucleus?
Well, that's that. I think I mean, if you can nail down, you keep Devontae and Josh Jacobs, if that's in the cards, there's your two for sure. And I mean, Myers, rookie, so he's not costing you anything, or hardly anything. And
Who is?
Meyer?
Oh,
tight
yeah.
end. You get a good,
Mayor.
yeah, Mayer. You get, I think he was the top graded rookie tight end,
Right.
But then obviously with Kincaid and stuff. But, I mean, so they've got a chance to, maybe within the next year or 2 years be better than the Raiders we've seen as of late.
Maybe Kirk Cousins comes to town.
He could. That would be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see Devontae wanting to
interesting.
stay if O'Connell
Yeah,
is the QB.
well, true. But unless he just
There's
balls out and,
there's not a whole lot of upside.
yeah,
The game you saw yesterday was against a completely out of it, defeated, don't want to be here team, in my opinion.
oh for sure.
That's the way they appeared. So I don't think they've found their answer. It's kind of like when everyone was anointing Josh Dobbs after 2 games in Minnesota
yeah,
as the reason that they won't go after Cousins and re-sign him. Not going to happen.
well, you get caught up in the moment. I mean,
You do,
It was like,
you do.
somebody saw somebody on.
Well, that's why I'm not caught up in this moment
Yeah.
because O'Connell is not the answer.
Well,
but
yeah, but I mean, if he rips off, I mean, yeah, like I said, 248 yards, that's not a whole lot. But, I mean, if he stays consistent enough and, they're playing well, I mean, maybe they bring, they roll with him for another year. I mean, I don't know. It's just, like that. Or, yeah, you try and, if you can go and get Cousins or find something elsewhere, I mean,
Justin
it's-
Herbert. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but you think about it, and Devontae is, I believe, 30 years old this year. He's realistically, I mean, if you've ever, paid attention to age and decline, it's after the 29 or 30-year-old season that the decline is pretty
It's there.
pretty steep. You saw it with Jones. You saw it with. I mean, there are just so many guys that there are, 1 or 2 or 3 that have gone past that and were highly capable still, compared to the hundreds and hundreds that haven't.
Yeah.
So if Devontae has more than 1 year left, I would be surprised.
Yeah.
And I don't think he necessarily wants to spend it
in.
on that team.
Yep.
He wanted to go play with Derek Carr.
That's true. Yeah.
He did not want to go play with. I mean, granted, I think didn't he grow up being a Raiders fan, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
It's I want to win a championship. He's much better off if he gets traded to Kansas City.
Of course.
So, and, Kansas City may be willing to give up enough for, the Raiders to start a rebuild. It's one of those, you have to decide, as a player, what's best for you in professional sports,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So, moving on to our picks of the week. First, we will start with our quarterbacks. We've got Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Purdy, Stafford, and Jordan Love.
All right.
Not quite sure why Jordan Love is up there, unless they think he's going to make up for last week's poor performance.
I hope so.
I am going to go with a guy that I'm semi-surprised was not on here, and that's Dak.
Yeah.
Dak is one of the top quarterbacks in football, top 3 or 4 scoring
Yeah.
in fantasy.
He's had the last 4 or 5 weeks where he's been just nuclear.
Yeah.
Basically. So.
Now, granted, he's going against Buffalo, and it's in Buffalo, so you never know about the weather.
Yeah.
However, I mean, we're looking at our weather today, which will be their weather on Sunday, and our weather today is high 40s
To 50. Yeah. I think.
Yeah.
The car when we were driving over, the vehicle was saying 47.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's probably going to be nice weather.
Yeah.
I mean, decent weather. Great weather if you're talking about Buffalo or Green Bay in the middle to end of December.
Yep.
So, it shouldn't impact Dak that much. I'm not super impressed with Buffalo's defense. I mean, they've been picked apart by teams quite easily. Usually it's with the run game.
Yep.
I mean, they're horrible against the run. But I look at Dak and think, this is a team that's shooting for the 1 seed. And I think they're going to do it. It's kind of like yesterday, and you and I talked about it before we came online. And we talked about how I was thinking, you're at 28. You're probably going to slow down. You're at 35. You're going to start slowing down. You're at 42.
Yeah.
You're at 49. You're at 56. You're at 63. I mean, they kept on pounding them. But it was with, although the pass to Devontae for the touchdown from Jacoby Myers was like the last score that they had, second to last or last score that they had.
Yeah.
So it was like, you're running a trick play against a team that you have completely dominated. It's in the fourth quarter, and you're still piling on points. But I think that, I think McCarthy has changed from his mindset when he was in Green Bay, when he used to think that 7 or 8 points was plenty, or 9,
Yeah.
and thinks that now you have to beat a team by 50, which is fine.
They also have a defense that can, if you only score 9 points, they have a defense that could hold the other team to less. Fewer points.
But I don't see that happening in
not
this game.
This matchup.
I think, Allen is going to pick them apart somewhat. I'm not saying that Buffalo's going to win this game. I think Dallas wins the game, but I think that a combination of running and passing is going to still make Dak a great pick for this week.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I said, he's been on fire, and it's a good matchup. Which I mean, it'll be. I think it'll be a really good game.
Yeah, I mean, had this been like a different year, and they were going to Buffalo in December, and it was going to be 3 feet of snow,
Oh yeah.
completely different. I wouldn't choose Dak,
no.
but with the weather as it is, I'm okay with it.
Yep. Yeah. So, I'm going with Jake Browning against Minnesota. It's a middle of the road matchup, kind of, but he's looked really good. He's played very well, and they got another week of healthy T. Higgins or getting closer to that 100%. Mixon had a good game last week. Obviously, had Chase Brown with the huge touchdown. So
they were
seeming to click with him in there. Like I said, it's not a difficult matchup. It's not like super easy, but I think he'll do very well again this week.
Yeah. The only downside on the big scores, I mean, like each of the last 2 weeks, he's had a rushing touchdown, which means that Mixon has been failing to do his job.
Yeah.
And if Mixon instead scores those touchdowns, and I'm not taking anything because I picked up Browning.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, I dropped O'Connell and picked up Browning because I had more faith in that offense than I do in the Raiders' offense. this week was not normal.
Yeah, well, that's like
for
in
O'Connell.
our Dynasty League, I have Bailey Zappi on my taxi squad.
Right.
And I was just checking through scores, and I scrolled down far enough, and like, oh.
He scored like 28 points or
Yeah,
something.
I didn't know. I honestly forgot that I had him on my. But I'm not gonna take him off. But
Right, right.
Unless he
You could have
balls
played
out and they say,
Right.
here's your, it's your team now.
right.
But, yeah.
You would have taken him off last week, and you still would have
Yeah.
lost by
Oh, yeah.
34 points
Yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah.
or 30 points,
Yep.
and it wouldn't have made a difference. And then you would have lost that
spot,
taxi
yeah.
spot. So it in that sense, it different than the Laporta
yeah.
situation that we discussed. That one's a little different. So, moving on to our running backs, we've got Kyron Williams, we've got CMC. So this is the first time I think maybe all year, including I think that didn't we talk about that CMC was listed
Even on
first,
his bye.
even on his bye. Bijan, Derrick Henry, Kamara, and they put Mixon up there.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully Mixon actually scores those touchdowns this week, and otherwise Browning might be getting them. I am going to go with White.
Yeah, I like it.
Zamir White from last. No, I'm kidding. It seems like almost every running back that plays against Green Bay does well.
Yep.
It's in Green Bay, which means could be windy, could be a little chillier. I'd have to check. I think it's going to cool down a little bit. It's still going to be right around freezing, or maybe even a little above, or maybe a little below. But
Yep.
I think that the running games are going to have to perform in that game.
Yeah.
And
this is Rashad White from Tampa.
Right.
But yeah, and his usage has been, he's getting a lot of opportunities.
Right.
So and he's been playing better. This was, he was one of those guys that it was a true take a shot on in the draft.
Yeah.
Because it was either going to be this where he's getting all of the work, or he was going to, be shaky, and they were going to bring in, everybody was talking about Sean Tucker, who I think is a rookie.
Could have brought back Fournette.
Could have brought back Fournette. They had some other options out there, but, they were talking about, if he doesn't perform, they're going to bring somebody in. It's going to turn into a committee, and it's going to be a committee you probably don't want to touch. But he's been the guy. He's been very good. So if you did take the gamble on it, it's paid out really nicely.
Yeah.
Against Green Bay, I actually, made up a DraftKings lineup this week, and I took Rashad White because I think he's gonna get opportunity, and it just does seem that the running backs just do good against.
Outside of like one or two games when our defense just played out of their minds, and I think part of that is having. Drawing a blank on his name, number 7.
Quay Walker.
Quay Walker.
Yep.
Quay Walker, to me is one of their best players on defense right now. We finally have that guy who can run sideline to sideline. He's quicker than most of the people out there, but he hasn't been in there the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago when they shut some people down, shut down the running backs because Quay was in there. So it's one of those. It kind of depends on if Quay is in there, but he hasn't been there for 2 weeks. So it'll be interesting to see if Quay is there. I downgrade White a little bit, but
I still, like I said, he's probably going to get 20 touches.
Yeah.
Between carries and receptions.
Yeah. Agreed.
He's just like I said, he's the guy for Tampa. So
yep.
I'm going with Jahmyr Gibbs versus Denver. I think both running backs will be okay in this game with Montgomery. But Gibbs, it's been pretty 50-50, but Gibbs is getting, obviously most of the receiving work. Right. So he's been outscoring Montgomery in that sense a little bit. But, this, as long as Jared Goff doesn't play like complete
trash,
I was going to use a word. Like complete
arse.
Yes, like complete trash like he did last week. This should be a pretty good game.
Yeah, you could have just said ash.
Yeah, I could have. But,
Forget the Yeah,
I think it could be a pretty good game. Potentially, hopefully high scoring, because obviously, as fantasy, football players, that's what you want. Especially your pieces, that you probably have in this matchup. So
Right.
I think and Gibbs is just like I said, it's pretty evenly split between him and Montgomery, but he just seems like Gibbs is now getting that bit of the edge
Yeah.
to where he's
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He was to me. He was misused at the beginning of the season.
Oh,
Underutilized.
Well, he flew up draft boards
Right.
as soon as the Lions. He saw that video of them cheering in the draft room when they were able to get him. Everybody's like, "This is their guy."
Yeah.
Oh,
I wanted him bad.
Yeah. So you had. Draft capital wise, you had to pay up for him.
Yeah.
And then you were, holy shoot, what the heck's going on
Yeah.
at the beginning of the season? Why
Yeah.
is he not getting hardly any opportunity?
Yeah, there were games that he wasn't in,
Yeah.
and now he's
took the
finally.
Montgomery injury
Yeah.
for him to fully, sometimes that's just what has to happen, which sucks. But it's
Play your best player.
Yeah,
I mean, this isn't Major League Baseball where you're holding on to a guy back in the minors because you don't want him to have enough
Yeah.
time to get out of his length of the contract,
Yep.
etc. But yeah, I like Gibbs. I just that'll be an interesting game because Denver has a lot to play for. They
That is
really
true.
do.
Yeah.
So we'll see, and they've generally got a decent defense that has been up and down.
Yeah.
I think it.
Like I said, I think it's going to hinge on if he can play well.
Right.
Because if he's playing like trash, they're just going to key on Gibbs and Montgomery.
True.
So.
Yep, agreed. Wide receivers, we've got Puka Nacua, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek, Cooper Kupp, AJ Brown, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I am going to go with Debo. I'm jumping on the Debo train. At Arizona, he's had 5 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. He got a rushing touchdown last week.
He had a couple of carries, didn't he? It wasn't just like
Oh, yeah,
one.
yeah,
He
yeah.
had a couple of carries. I
And,
thought.
to my dismay, because I'm a CMC
Yep.
owner in all 3 leagues, in case I haven't ever said that before.
News to me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to you about it then after. He seems like he's preferred over some of Ayuk is still excellent, but, for 2/3 of the season, we said Ayuk is obviously wide receiver 1 there.
Yeah.
And Debo, it's almost like they said, Debo, did we hurt your feelings? We're going to give you 5 touchdowns over 2 weeks. And, they're winning. So
Yeah. That's all
because
that matters, but yeah.
because they're not scoring 17 points.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Debo
Arizona is just pathetic. So
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, well, that's what we were talking about. I think, with why CMC's not the top graded back for NBC Sports, and Kyron is one. Kyron's playing Washington, who's worse than Arizona defensively. But I said this is either going to be which is good for you because you have CMC on all 3 of your teams. It's going to be a
wait, I do?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I heard that from somewhere.
Nice.
But it's going to be CMC with 170 yards and 3 touchdowns. That would be amazing.
You know what?
Or it's going to be the receivers and Brock Purdy doing all of the scoring all game. It's just.
That's okay because I've got Purdy in the only league that I'm playing this week too. So it's Purdy and CMC.
Yeah.
So the other 2 I've got buys. So I'd rather, as long as you guarantee me a win this week in the one league, I'd rather CMC get the 3 touchdowns next week.
Yeah, that'd be nice. But yeah, so
Or maybe championship week if I make it in all 3 of my leagues.
yeah, so like I said, I think against Arizona, it could be another one of those weeks where it's one of their offensive options that's doing all of the
Could be
scoring.
Kittle.
Yeah, it could.
But again, if it's Kittle, then it's Purdy.
Yep.
If it's one of the wide receivers, and that's what I like about where I am with having both Purdy and CMC.
Yeah.
I don't like stacking. Right. I don't like stacking wide receiver or tight end with the quarterback, but I will the running back because usually some of it. With a CMC, some of that generally carries over. But if the running back is scoring everything or the quarterback is scoring everything, you're still getting there with both of them.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So.
Yep. And then I'm going to go with Devonta Smith against Seattle. He's had pretty good stretch of games.
He has.
He's had, I think I looked, I don't quote, but I'm pretty sure what I saw is he's had over 60 receiving yards the last like 4 weeks or 5 weeks. Good, healthy amount of targets. Depending on what Seattle shows up this week,
Right.
too, this could be, I mean, obviously we've seen the Eagles get, some scores run up,
Right.
I mean, they're winning, but, for the most part, but they are, they're having to battle and
Right.
really actually truly win the game.
Unlike last year.
Well, yeah. So, but I think Seattle's, they're going to try and do everything they can to stop A.J. Brown because I think he's the number one or preferred. And I think that's going to leave a lot of opportunity for Devonta Smith. And maybe he won't be a complete huge blow up, but I think you're going to be pretty happy with what you get from him.
Yeah, I agree. And they've really, they really haven't been using their running backs as much.
Swift has been disappointing.
Yes, Swift and Gainwell. I mean, I'm just in Boston Scott.
Yep.
Just they aren't even getting many touches.
Yeah.
Maybe 15 or so between them.
Yeah.
Which, probably isn't enough, which is why both of their receivers are much more important to that team right now.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's a good pick. Moving on to our tight ends, we've got Kelsey, Kittle, Laporta, Hawkinson, Taysom Hill, again somehow, and Evan Engram. And I am going to go Trey McBride. McBride continues to get the majority of the targets down there.
Yep.
Granted, it's against San Francisco. It's in Arizona, so it's the weather probably will be okay.
Yeah.
Compared to up here in the North Woods. So based on the number of targets he's seen every week, I'm surprised that he's left off of this list as much as he is.
I think it's just the matchup. If it was a decent matchup, he'd be switching Taysom and McBride, I think, in that top 6. But,
yeah.
I think it's just the matchup. But based off the matchup, they're probably going to be behind by a decent amount. So that means they're going to have to keep throwing the ball.
Right.
Again, he just gets so many targets.
Right.
And,
right.
This is...
And he's the guy that's out there that, and he may be the second or third choice in the pass offense. Mm-hmm. However, if they're covering the other guys and, taking away those guys, well, then he has the better chance of being open.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, and he's been kind of on his little, his second half of the season breakout so far, after
Ertz got hurt.
Was McBride hurt at the beginning of the season?
He very well may have
Yeah,
been.
because
And then Ertz got
a lot
hurt.
of targets.
Yeah.
And they got hurt, and then
They let him go, and I'm
Yep.
surprised he still hasn't signed, has he?
No, there were some whispers he might go back to Philly, just
yeah.
to end out a career.
I'm just surprised
but,
he hasn't signed yet.
Me too. Yeah. So
In reality,
yeah. So I'm riding a hot hand. 2 touchdowns last week, David Njoku. It was said, but now the actual paperwork's done with Joe Flacco being the starting quarterback for the rest of the season, which is an upgrade over the rookie Thompson Robinson and then PJ Walker. So, like I said, 2 touchdowns. They beautiful play design where he was wide open. Yeah, and he's been playing better too recently.
He has.
He likes to bring the punishment when he runs. He's a big dude, so he's fighting, and I think Flacco will reward him because it's Chicago they beat the Lions, but their defense has been playing a little better over the last half of the season here. So could be an interesting game as well. The Cleveland defense hasn't been in the last 2 weeks
what they had been.
Yeah,
Right.
So whether that's struggles, obviously, if the offense truly struggles and you're out on the field for 90% of the time, you get tired and wore down, you're bound to let up bigger plays and stuff. He's just been playing really well, and I think he's gonna get plenty of opportunity this week.
Yeah, I agree. I was going back and forth between McBride and Njoku, and I settled on McBride. Just because I think they'll be down and needing to pass.
Yep.
Njoku, they may or may not need to pass as much, but I like,
Yeah, well, Jerome Ford he's been limited because of the wrist injury, and then Kareem Hunt as well was not practicing, and then I think it was either yesterday or today that he actually limited. So both of those guys are going in questionable. So that if somehow they both miss, that leaves Pierre Strong, who would probably be a decent pickup in a pinch. If you have to.
Can't pick anyone up in my one league.
Well, true. But yeah, so I mean, there's a chance, they might have to, and that would, mean maybe, a lot more kind of like Hawkinson, who just is going to get hyper targeted in short yardage situations and stuff like that. So
right. Yeah. Well, I like it. That's all we've got for this week.
Yep.
Hopefully, you get the opportunity to listen or watch.
Yep.
And happy 1 week to my granddaughter.
Yeah.
She was, like we said, born last Friday. So otherwise, do you have anything else to add?
If you're in playoffs, good luck.
Well, thanks.
And if you're gunning to not get last place, good luck.
Good luck. Well, good luck to you this weekend.
Dynasty, then whatever luck you want, I guess.
Yeah? Why?
Well, lose out.
Oh, yeah, but you have to. And I didn't know that in our league where you have to actually win that second of the 2 games. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
So you have to lose this week.
Yep.
And then go to that game to win, and whoever wins that game gets the 1 pick, and the loser of that game gets the 2 pick. And I was looking at to step back for a second,
because if you truly want the 1 pick, you can't tank.
Right.
At least the last week you can't.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I don't. And that I don't want to say I don't like it. I've come to realize that there are so many different types of leagues out there, and because we were talking about. I was talking to my buddy Scott, who's the commissioner of the Long League, and he's in a league that has it's semi-redraft, semi-keeper. You can trade draft picks. I mean, it's a keeper league, but you can actually trade your all of your players away and get draft picks. And he has like 2 or 3 firsts and 2 seconds and 3 thirds and blah blah blah, and which you're still missing out on a bunch of good players, but you could possibly rebuild through something that the new guys coming up and everything.
Yep.
And it's just it's interesting, the different formats, and we talk about a couple of them. We talk about numbers of players and everything, and it's one of those. I think I might have to get into some more leagues or run a couple leagues just so that I can get a feel for how some of that is how it works.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting, and I've been playing so long, it's I love doing it, but I don't always think about different ways of doing it. I mean, it's kind of like my third league that I'm in, that I'm like 11-2-1 in or whatever, and the interesting thing is that our flex position is only kicker, running back. And I haven't paid attention to it because I've always played a kicker or running back. And I was just.
And there's 2 starting running back slots, right?
Yeah. 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and then a W/R slot.
A true flex. Well, actually, no, not tight end.
Right. A W/R flex. And I was just goofing around, and I was looking at, moving players around because I don't play this week because I'm on a bye. But I looked at it. And I'm like, I can't put a tight end in there? What? And I looked at it, and it's W/R, and I'm like, I never even noticed that you couldn't play a tight end in there.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy. So I mean, there there are so many different things. Like I was reading in a Facebook group. This guy was complaining because the LA Chargers scored like 39 points yesterday. Even though they gave up 63 and they gave up all those yards and they only had one sack. Apparently they do things on 3 and outs.
Yeah.
They do things for, you get points for tackles for loss. In addition to all of that other stuff.
So the Raiders defense must have scored
1,000.
Yeah.
We never found out because people were asking, hey, I'd like to know
how
what
much
the Raiders scored in that
Yeah.
in that league. And the guy never came back and said, but it's like, because he initially came on and said, well, we use standard scoring. No, you don't use standard scoring because that would have been negative 75 as far well, no, I mean,
yes,
you're going to hit that almost a maximum negative because you didn't score any touchdowns. You had one sack and nothing else. So, it's interesting how, all of these leagues come up with different, and like I told you, before I had our commish changed the one league, it was ridiculous because you got a point per completion.
Yeah.
So, Tom Brady was a stud because he throws all these 5-foot passes to guys and he throws like 40 or 50 completions a game.
Yeah.
So, boom, I was up 40 or 50 points just on those.
Yeah.
So, I while I like some of the different ways to run your league, I don't like all the scoring options.
Yeah.
The league that I've been in for 30 plus years, there have been, we need to add a flex option. Let's add a flex option and take away one of our running backs. And I think to myself, the thing that makes this such a cool league is having 2 running backs in a 16-team league.
Yeah.
That makes you think. You have to worry about coming up with, yes, there are some RBBCs, etc. But for the most part, you've got, here's your running back on a team that's going to score the points. So you want to go out and get 2 of those or you're going to be in trouble.
For sure.
So, that got voted down really easily because I can't see us doing something. It's been this way for so long that I hate changing things just because 1 or 2 people want it. Yep. If you want a different type of league, go to another league. But that's what makes it so interesting. You start your own league. You do whatever you want for scoring. Do whatever you want for keepers. You do whatever you want for how you draft. You do whatever you want for what the loser of the previous season wins or loses. By finishing in last place. Some places they say that if you finish last, you get the first pick the next year. Yep. There are leagues out there that do along the lines of ping pong balls, like basketball does for the draft. And you get X number of balls based on whatever it is, and you randomize, and maybe it's based on wins or whatever. But it always gives a different team the opportunity of jumping over you, kind of like happened in baseball with the draft that they just determined. So it's cool, having, like I said, having played for so long in one format, my mind is usually in that format, and all of these nuances and differences kind of makes it interesting as to what all others are doing.
Yeah, well, you get in a league that long, but long enough, like the redraft league, it gets customized to how everybody in that league likes.
You still need to make one change.
Yeah,
you need to have waivers.
Yeah, like I said, we'll see. I think it's been brought up, but we like the last month before the draft, everybody kind of thinks of things to vote on stuff, and obviously most of the stuff gets shot down, but
the tough one.
The one thing we changed years ago was we had 3 receivers, 2 running backs, tight end. I don't think we had a flex, and then we took a receiver away and added the flex.
Sure,
and then there's been talk,
and that's a true flex.
Yes, and there's been talk. I think this last year, I believe it got brought up in that league to add another flex and get rid of kickers and defenses.
Okay.
So which is interesting, but then you really got to nail your draft or find that
You do.
flyer, and it
You
makes
do.
you pay attention a little more, or think a little more. But yeah, it's
There's the problem, and I don't disagree with that, because there's again, that I am not a guy who likes a lot of variance. Kickers are completely variable.
yeah,
I played Koo last week, and Koo had 2 opportunities at 50-plus yard field goals, and he missed them both. 14 points down the drain.
Yeah.
My other kicker, and I think I mentioned this, my other kicker kicked a 55-yarder, and it was a 10-point kick, and I didn't have him in. And you think about, the opportunity, and I have now since dropped Koo from my team when I picked up Zamir White. Or actually I did it when I picked up a tight end.
Yeah.
But the thought is that, if you can get rid of that variance, because on any given weekend, you don't know if, going forward, if the opportunity comes up again, who doesn't get that opportunity now?
Yeah.
Because they don't have any faith in him, because he just missed 2 50-plus yard field goals last week. But, you get a strong leg guy in perfect situations that's kicking, Aubrey last week just went off.
Justin Tucker for however many years. I mean, he's been decent enough this year, but not like, that true number 1 kicker,
Right.
But yeah. So I
Yeah.
agree.
I mean, I get where people want to move away from that. My problem with the whole waiver wire thing is, and not having guys on waivers, is that you're always going to have people who are either busy or, they're not the type that watch every game or pay attention to every game. So a guy gets hurt during the 12 o'clock game, and they don't know about it. So someone goes out and vultures a guy who's not on a roster.
Well, I did that when Nick Chubb, as soon as Nick Chubb got hit and I saw him grabbing his knee, I went and grabbed Jerome Ford immediately.
Yeah.
So
See, and which is, first of all, Jerome Ford is already playing, so you couldn't pick him up.
yeah.
In most leagues. I mean, there have been questions about, well, shouldn't I be able to pick up a guy who isn't in my starters but already played a game? Well, no, you shouldn't be able to drop him and pick up another guy. Just like you shouldn't be able to pick up anyone who has already started a game, any teams that have started, and whether it be for this week or next week, because obviously you can't for this week.
Yeah.
But you really take away chances. However, I'm also not a fan of the way we necessarily do it in my longtime league, which is based solely on record.
Yeah.
I like the old Yahoo way of doing it, where it continues.
If you have first and you
Use it,
do 1, then
you move to the back.
yes.
Yeah. And I'm good with that.
Yeah.
But it goes week to week. So now when I used it as first, even though I'm in last place, I don't move to the head of the line again, because in my mind that incentivizes the poor teams. I mean, it gives them a little bit too much of a plus that they can keep on replenishing with the top free agent each week. Whereas, if you have to wrap to the back only waiver wire pickups count, because if you pick up someone off of free agency once the waivers pass, then it doesn't cost you your spot. So I just, I think for people who don't have the opportunities that or take the opportunities like you do, and frankly I do too at times, depending upon the league I'm in. I just think it's more fair, it's more equitable. I'm a little bit more toward equitable on some of that stuff, as opposed to, hey, I saw it before you did, I get it.
Yep. Yeah. It's always been a joke. I mean, our buddy Isaac, we call him the Weasel.
Yeah.
Because he would weasel players like that he used to be so bad about it. I mean, so bad. But And now it's like kind of a joke, and yeah,
That's the
it
kind of
still
guy you want to
happens,
beat up.
but watch it. No.
We're coming for you, Isaac.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, well, that's all I've got for this week, and apparently we talked ourselves out. So, hope you all have a great week.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
See ya.